What if I told you the best fertilizer on Earth is illegal to sell, free to make, and currently growing in the cracks of your driveway while you drive to the store to buy Miracle-Gro for $30? What if I told you that the plants you spend hours pulling out, the ones you spray with poison, the ones you curse every spring, contain more nitrogen than cow manure, more potassium than most commercial fertilizers, and more trace minerals than anything you can buy in a bottle? What if the solution to your garden problems is literally the problem you're trying to eliminate? And here's the part that makes this absolutely insane. Your great-grandfather knew this. Farmers knew this for thousands of years. And then, suddenly, after World War II, this knowledge disappeared. Not because it stopped working, because it stopped being profitable. Welcome to Forbidden Harvest. The fertilizer we're talking about today is not some exotic import from the Amazon. It's not a trendy new product from a startup. It's not even something you can buy, which is exactly the point. This is a liquid fertilizer so powerful, so effective, so superior to synthetic alternatives that it threatens a $200 billion industry. And it's made from 3 plants that most people consider worthless weeds, plants they pay to have removed, plants they spray with poison, glyphosate, Roundup, chemical herbicides that contaminate soil and water. Then they bag up the dead plants, dozens of bags, and pay the city to haul them away, or they rent a truck and drive them to the dump, spending money to eliminate a resource. And then, weeks later, those same people drive to Home Depot or Lowe's, walk into the garden section, and pay $30, $40, $50 for bottles of synthetic fertilizer. Fertilizer that contains inferior versions of the exact same nutrients they just paid to throw away. This isn't gardening advice. This is economic insanity. This is a system designed to keep you buying, keep you dependent, keep you ignorant of the fact that abundance is growing all around you disguised as a problem. Here's the mechanism, and this is where it gets beautiful. Weeds, especially deep-rooted weeds, are nature's miners. Their roots go down deep, sometimes 3, 4, 5 feet into the subsoil, into layers of earth where your vegetables will never reach, and they pull up nutrients, minerals that have been locked in rock and clay for millennia. They pull them up, concentrate them in their tissues, and store them in their leaves. Nettle is a nitrogen accumulator. It pulls nitrogen from the air and soil and concentrates it in levels that rival cow manure. Comfrey is a potassium powerhouse. Its roots go down 10 feet and mine potassium from bedrock. Dandelion brings up calcium, iron, copper, and dozens of trace minerals from deep subsoil. These plants are literally doing the work of fertilizer factories for free, using only sun, rain, and soil. And then we rip them out and throw them away while driving to buy synthesized versions of the exact same nutrients they just paid to throw away. Now here's what makes this go viral, because you need to understand the sheer irony of what's happening. Every spring, millions of people spend hours, days, weeks pulling weeds. They bend over, they strain their backs, they curse and sweat. Some people pay lawn services hundreds of dollars to spray these plants with poison, glyphosate, Roundup, chemical herbicides that contaminate soil and water. Then they bag up the dead plants, dozens of bags, and pay the city to haul them away, or they rent a truck and drive them to the dump, spending money to eliminate a resource. And then, weeks later, those same people drive to Home Depot or Lowe's, walk into the garden section, and pay $30, $40, $50 for bottles of synthetic fertilizer. Fertilizer that contains inferior versions of the exact same nutrients they just paid to throw away. So let's get specific. What are these 3 plants, and why are they so powerful? First, stinging nettle. If you've ever touched this plant, you know it. It defends itself with tiny needles that inject histamine and formic acid into your skin, burns like hell, which is exactly why most people hate it and want it gone. But here's what those same people don't know. Nettle is one of the richest sources of nitrogen in the plant kingdom. When you make nettle tea, a fermented liquid fertilizer, you're creating something with an NPK ratio that rivals commercial fertilizers. But, unlike commercial fertilizers, nettle tea also contains calcium, magnesium, iron, sulfur, silica, and dozens of trace minerals. It contains chlorophyll, which helps plants with photosynthesis. It contains enzymes that improve soil biology. And it contains natural hormones that stimulate plant growth. You're not just feeding the plant, you're feeding the entire soil ecosystem. That's the difference between synthetic and natural. One is a drug, the other is food. Second, comfrey. This plant is legendary among old-time gardeners. It's called the miracle plant because it does things that seem impossible. Its roots go down 10 feet into the subsoil, deeper than almost any other garden plant, and they mine potassium. They pull it up from layers of clay and rock where it's been locked away for geological time. Then they concentrate it in their massive leaves. When you harvest comfrey and ferment it into liquid fertilizer, you're creating a potassium solution so concentrated it can replace any bloom booster or fruiting fertilizer on the market. Tomatoes love it, peppers love it, fruit trees love it, because potassium is what drives flowering and fruiting. And comfrey delivers it in a form that plants can use immediately, along with calcium, phosphorus, protein, and vitamins. The Victorians grew giant vegetables with comfrey. Organic farmers still swear by it, but you won't find it at garden centers because you can't patent a plant, you can't sell a weed. Third, dandelion, the most hated plant in suburban America. Millions of dollars spent every year on chemicals to kill it. Roundup ads literally show dandelions as the enemy. Perfect lawns must be dandelion-free, which is insane when you understand what this plant actually does. Dandelions have taproots that go down 3 feet or more. They break through compacted soil, they mine deep minerals, and they bring them up to the surface. Calcium, iron, copper, manganese, all the micronutrients that vegetables need but can't reach. When you make dandelion tea, you're creating a mineral-rich tonic that strengthens plant cell walls, improves disease resistance, and enhances flavor. There's a reason wild foods taste better than grocery store produce. They have more minerals, more complexity, more life. Dandelions are giving that back to your garden for free, and we're killing them. Now, about that word illegal. Why did I say this fertilizer is illegal to sell? Because it's true. In most countries, including the United States, you cannot sell fermented plant teas as fertilizer without going through expensive regulatory approval. You have to test it, register it, label it, get permits. The cost is prohibitive for something that people can make in a bucket for free. So it exists in a legal gray zone. It's not illegal to make, it's not illegal to use, but it's illegal to sell, which means it will never compete with Miracle-Gro in stores, which means most people will never hear about it, which means the industry is protected. Convenient, isn't it? The most effective, sustainable, free fertilizer on Earth is locked out of the marketplace by regulations that protect the companies selling inferior products. Here's the historical part that never makes it into gardening magazines. This knowledge was common. It was standard practice in agriculture for centuries. European farmers made nettle tea. Asian farmers made comfrey tea. Indigenous peoples across the world knew which plants accumulated which nutrients and how to return those nutrients to the soil. This was the foundation of sustainable agriculture before industrial agriculture existed. And it worked. It worked so well that farms could remain productive for generations without inputs from outside. But then World War II happened, and chemical companies that made explosives suddenly had factories full of nitrogen with no war to sell it to. So they looked for a new market, and they found it in agriculture. Ammonium nitrate, the same chemical used in bombs, became the basis of synthetic fertilizer. And over the next 2 decades, through aggressive marketing, through university partnerships, through government subsidies, through every tool of influence they had, these companies convinced the world that plants needed chemicals, that traditional methods were outdated, that weeds were enemies, that nature was inefficient. And it worked. Within 1 generation, the knowledge of how to make plant-based fertilizers almost disappeared. It survived only in pockets. Old-time gardeners who refused to change, organic farmers who rejected chemicals, homesteaders who couldn't afford to buy inputs. But for the mainstream, it was gone, erased, replaced by dependency on products. So how do you actually make this banned fertilizer? The process is simple, almost too simple, which is part of why it's been dismissed. First, you harvest your weeds, nettle, comfrey, dandelion, or any combination. You want them before they go to seed, when they're actively growing and their nutrient content is highest. Wear gloves if you're harvesting nettle. Use scissors or pruners to cut them at the base. Fill a 5-gallon bucket about halfway with chopped plant material. The more you chop it, the faster it breaks down. Then, fill the bucket with water. Rainwater is best, but tap water works. You want to cover the plant material completely. Then here's the key step. Cover the bucket. Not airtight, but covered enough to keep out flies and reduce the smell. Because this is going to ferment. This is going to smell. It's going to smell like death and swamp and concentrated organic decay. That smell is biology. That smell is billions of microorganisms breaking down plant tissue and releasing nutrients into the water. That smell is what synthetic fertilizer tries to replicate in a lab. Let it sit for 2 to 4 weeks. Stir it every few days. You'll see it change. The water will turn dark brown, almost black. The plant material will break down into sludge. Bubbles will form and pop on the surface. This is fermentation. This is creation. After 2 to 4 weeks, when the smell goes from offensive to just earthy, it's ready. Strain out the solids. You can compost those or use them as mulch. The liquid is your fertilizer. This is concentrated. Never use it straight. You need to dilute it. The ratio is typically 1 part tea to 10 parts water. Some people use 1 to 20 for seedlings. You can't really over-dilute it, but you can burn plants if you use it too strong. Apply it to the soil around your plants. Water it in like you would any liquid fertilizer. Use it every week or every 2 weeks during the growing season. That's it. That's the banned fertilizer. That's the liquid gold that replaced Miracle-Gro for generations of farmers. And it's yours for free, forever. Now I want you to do the math. Really calculate this. A bottle of Miracle-Gro liquid fertilizer costs about $25. It makes about 60 gallons of diluted fertilizer. You use it up in a month if you're feeding a decent-sized garden. So that's $25 a month, times 6 months of growing season, that's $150 a year minimum. Over 10 years, that's $1,500. And that's just fertilizer. That's not counting soil amendments, bloom boosters, starter fertilizers, all the other products they sell you. Now compare that to weed tea. $0. You're using plants that grow themselves. You're using water that falls from the sky or comes from your hose. You're using a bucket you probably already own. The only cost is your time. 20 minutes to harvest, 5 minutes to set it up, 2 minutes to stir it every few days, 30 minutes total over a month. And in exchange, you get fertilizer that's superior to what you were buying. Fertilizer that improves soil health instead of degrading it. Fertilizer that builds long-term fertility instead of creating dependency. The economics aren't even close. But here's what makes this truly revolutionary. This isn't just about saving money. This is about breaking free from a system. Because once you understand that the solution is literally growing all around you, once you realize that nature provides abundance and corporations sell scarcity, your entire relationship with gardening changes. You stop being a consumer. You stop being dependent. You start being a participant in a system that's been working for millions of years. You look at a weed and instead of seeing a problem, you see a resource. Instead of seeing something to eliminate, you see something to harness. That mental shift is more valuable than any fertilizer because it applies to everything, not just gardening. Once you see one lie, you start seeing all of them. Once you break one dependency, you start questioning all of them. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Your garden doesn't need them. It never did. Plants have been growing for 400 million years without Miracle-Gro. Forests create their own fertility without inputs. Prairies feed themselves without chemicals. Nature is a closed-loop system. Nothing is wasted. Everything is recycled. Death becomes life. Decay becomes fertility. And the only reason your garden isn't a closed-loop system is because you've been taught to remove everything, to bag up the leaves, to throw away the weeds, to buy back fertility that you exported. It's artificial scarcity. And the moment you stop participating, the moment you start returning organic matter to the soil, the moment you start using what grows instead of what's sold, the system collapses. For you, not for them. They'll keep selling to people who don't know better. But for you, personally, the game is over. You've opted out. So here's how you actually start. Don't overthink this. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't research for 6 months. Just start. This weekend, go outside and look for these 3 plants. Nettle grows in disturbed soil, near fences, in shaded areas. It has serrated leaves and grows in patches. You'll know it if you touch it. Comfrey you might need to plant, but once it's established, it's yours forever. You can order root cuttings online for a few dollars and plant them in a corner of your yard. Dandelions you definitely have unless you've been spraying. They're everywhere. Grab a bucket, harvest some of each if you can, or just use what you have. Chop them up, add water, cover it. Set it somewhere out of the way where the smell won't bother anyone, and wait. That's it. That's your first batch. 2 weeks from now, you'll have fertilizer. Use it on one plant. Compare it to a plant you're feeding with store-bought fertilizer. Watch what happens. You'll see the difference. You'll see the color, the vigor, the resilience, and you'll realize you've been lied to. So the next time someone tells you gardening is expensive, that you need to buy all these products, that weeds are worthless, that nature is inefficient, remember this: the most powerful fertilizer on Earth is free. It's growing in places you're trying to eliminate it from. It's more effective than what you're buying. It builds soil instead of destroying it, and the only reason you didn't know about it is because there's no profit in telling you. The hardest part of sustainable gardening isn't the gardening, it's unlearning what the industry taught you to believe, that you need them, that nature is broken, that abundance requires purchase, because the truth is the exact opposite. Nature is abundant, nature is efficient, nature is free. And the moment you align with nature instead of fighting it, everything changes. This is the banned fertilizer. This is the liquid gold your ancestors knew. This is the knowledge that threatens a $200 billion industry, and now it's yours. Make it, use it, share it, and watch what grows. If this video reached you, the harvest is no longer hidden.